The let's go live button. So let's wait for the streams to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet, connecting the tubes from the restream over through the locals, over to the Rumble, to the Facebooks, to the Twitter, to the YouTube's working. That's really, really good news, which means we're live on locals. Looks like Rumble, we've got some activity over there in the house as well. And so without any further ado, my friends, let's go ahead and get right into it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about a circus, the American political circus. And we've got 4 different segments that we're going to bounce around. Normally, we have 3 segments. Today, these are a little bit shorter, but there's a lot of them. We're going to go through 4 of them, and you can see the big one at the top is Trump. He had a big rally over the weekend out there in Texas, and he said that, you know, based on how things are looking, I'm probably going to have to do this whole thing again, causing a lot of people to say, yeah, we know. I mean, it's, we know you're doing it. So, but he's saying, getting a little bit closer, probably going to have to do it again. And so we'll take a look at that story. But the reason why is because he's saying that, well, one of the reasons why is because the Biden administration is going hard and fast against the entire MAGA movement, something that we've covered a lot here, of course. The idea being that what did I just do here on my screen? Okay, here. The idea in this case being that Biden and the DOJ, the FBI, everybody, the J6 committee, they're all going after Trump and Trump deputies. Anybody who's even closely related, they sort of want to take him out. So we'll look at some of the onslaught that Trump is facing. We'll take a gander at some new Mar-a-Lago documents. We talked about these this morning on our morning walk and talk. But there is a new joint this time, actually joint. Last week, it wasn't joint. They said it was joint, and it was sort of a blindside to the Trump defense team. But now they refiled it, so they sort of got their heads together over the weekend. We've got a short document we'll take a look at with the Mar-a-Lago situation. Liz Cheney was also out over the weekend. We know last week on Friday, they sent a big fat subpoena over to Trump, and they said, guess what? You're going to come and testify in front of us. And Trump, we were talking about this, maybe we were thinking should go. Why? Because it would turn into a big spectacle, a gigantic circus. And Liz Cheney said, no, she's not going to allow that to happen. She came back and said, we're going to make sure that this maniac can't get a hold of this entire debacle, because we know that if he did, it would sort of be the end of the January 6th committee, which is why I kind of want him to testify. But we've got a clip from her. We have Nancy Pelosi, who's about to get blown out of proportion in the next upcoming election in about 2 weeks. She's goading Trump. She's now calling him not man enough. Yeah, so Nancy Pelosi is using what I feel to be very inappropriate, gendered and non-inclusive, inappropriate insults. Not man enough. I mean, what does that even mean? That's very gendered, very pronoun-y, presumptuous, all sorts of problems with that. So we're going to take a look at her clip, and we've got this wild conversation between a group of MAGA people who are allegedly insurrectionists, according to this MSNBC anchor. But she goes through an interview with them, and she's like, wait a minute, people died there. And they said, yeah, Ashley Babbitt was killed. And they said, well, the so on and so forth and so on. And the people she's interviewing are just way smarter than she is. And so I don't want to get into it, but we'll come back, of course, and spend a lot of time on that, about 2.5-minute clip. And this MSNBC journalist, I think, is the first time she ever heard anything resembling reality. That's all in the first segment. Then we've got a second segment. Big news, of course, on the student loan issue. Biden waved with the magic wand, with a stroke of a pen, about $400 billion of debt gone, apparently. But a judge said, nope, not so fast. You're not going to do that. And issued a ruling, very small order. We'll take a look at it. The White House responded. They said, well, we don't really care what the courts say. We've never cared what the courts say. We're going to do whatever we want to do. Just deal with it. They responded with Karine Jean-Pierre, officially on the White House website. Joe Biden doesn't really know what he's doing or what he's talking about, because there was a clip where he said that these student loans they just barely squeezed by Congress, this bill. barely was voted into law. He almost didn't get it accomplished through the houses of Congress. Well, it turns out it didn't go through the houses of Congress. This was an executive order. So he's talking about signing something into law, and everybody's raising their eyebrows going, what? Do you even know what you're doing in there? Because you didn't pass this into law. This is an executive branch. And we talked about this one over the weekend as well, but a very sleepy Joe Biden who fell asleep in the middle of an interview with somebody on MSNBC. We got to make sure that we spend some time on that because Joe Biden is just totally checked out. So we've got that in our second segment. We had a very, very interesting ruling from a federal district court saying that the Faucis and the Psakis out in the Biden administration are now subject to deposition, which is just outstanding. And so this is a very fun read. We're going to see exactly where every single one of these individuals, most particularly we're focused on Jen Psaki and Fauci. We are going to read through the deposition because it is, the order authorizing the depositions because it's a lot of fun. District court came out and said, Fauci, you have to sit and comply, and Psaki, so do you, which should be fun. Then in our last segment, this just hit, 30 House Democrats are demanding negotiations start taking place between Russia and Ukraine. Wow, that's pretty interesting. 30 House Democrats saying it's time to negotiate. We got to settle this stuff down. So that's going to be a little bit of a change in course, I think. And so as you can see, we've got 4 segments, a lot to get through. We do have some reading to attend to. And so if you want to be a part of the show, the best place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. I see them chatting away. Shout outs to John McGarvey, C. Reed. We have Paul Mino is in the house. Paul Mino is showing me his A10 Mini Pro over there. It's really big. It's a lot bigger than my A10 Mini Pro, which is sort of, it's kind of embarrassing. But anyways, we have a whole crew over there chatting away. Awesome people. That's over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And come in and join us if you want to be a part of the program there. We also are a law firm in Scottsdale, Arizona. I am a criminal defense lawyer. Our team is the R&R Law Group. We're located in Scottsdale. We help good people charged with crimes all over Arizona, really from all over the world. Anytime somebody's in trouble in the state of Arizona, that's what we do. We offer free case evaluations, 480-787-0394, online at rrlawaz.com. And so anybody that you know who's been in trouble with the law, what we fight for is the presumption of innocence, the burden of proof. We make sure that the government doesn't overstep their bounds and encroach on our clients' civil rights or civil liberties, and we make sure that they do their jobs appropriately. We help our clients who are good people get things back on track, and we'd love to help. Thank you for your referrals, 480-787-0394, and you do keep us busy, so I do appreciate that. But all right, my friends, so thank you for that. Let's cue this puppy up so we can get right into these segments because we do have some serious business to attend to today. As you can see, 4 segments here. Whew. Oh, and before we begin, show notes. I am going out of town on Wednesday. I'm going out of town, so there will not be shows Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I forgot to mention this. But there will be walk and talks, and I'm going to post as much as I can. I'm going to a conference in Texas, and it's going to be a lot of fun, but there will not be shows on that day. So if you do want to sort of stay connected, Locals is the best place to be. I know it's bad news. I'm going to miss you guys too. But I'm going to fly over to Austin for 3 days, and I'm going to learn a lot more stuff and then come back, and it's going to be better. The show is going to be better because I'm going to be smarter and wiser. But forgot to mention that. Anyways, now let's get into the program. Donald Trump announces at a rally that he's probably going to have to do it again, meaning running for president. Of course, he has a lot of issues with how the current country is being run, the current administration not doing so hot in a number of different areas, but questions are now surrounding Trump. Is he going to be running again or not? He's got a lot of open issues that are sort of dogging him, many people would say, including what's going on at Mar-a-Lago. We are going to take a look at a new filing in the Mar-a-Lago case, as well as get updates on what's taking place with the January 6th subpoena and that entire saga. But first, let's listen to Trump, because he's got some issues with the Biden administration and the DOJ and the FBI. And something we've been talking about for a long time here on this channel has been the weaponization of all of these institutions to go take out their political opponents. It's not just the raid on Trump's residence. It's not just the prosecution of Steve Bannon or Peter Navarro or the J6ers, but it's everybody, right? It's expanded beyond what anybody thought was possible. Now with Joe Biden even calling many Americans ultra extremist MAGA insurrectionists from the gates of hell while he's giving speeches addressing the country. It's turned into an insane little debacle that we're all living through, and Trump is addressing that. Trump at a rally said the weaponization of these institutions is not sustainable, and the Biden administration is continuing to try to eviscerate the entire MAGA movement.
Before our very eyes, Biden and his left-wing handlers are turning America into a police state. And I don't even think it's Biden, to be honest with you. But they got some bad people around.
He's gone.
Like something straight out of a communist country. See, I used to say socialist, but we've skipped socialism. We don't talk about that. I don't even mention it anymore. We're not socialists anymore. We're communists. We've gone over socialism. We're gone. It's over. It's communist. They're talking about communists. There's a communist system that we're putting up with right now.
Equity.
The radical Democrats are locking up pro-life activists, persecuting their political opponents, spying on their political rivals, silencing dissent, and using the full force of government, law enforcement, and the media to try and crush our movement. And let me tell you, the media is a big problem because they're corrupt and dishonest.
Everybody's in on it. From the media to the FBI to the DOJ to all, even the J6 committee, many Republicans on there, all joining in on the big dog pile, doing whatever they can to eliminate Trump. Anybody who thinks about Trump, anybody who voted for Trump, anybody who identifies as a MAGA person, all have to be removed. And Trump saying, this is bigger than just me. It's to try to stop the entire movement, not only Donald Trump, but everybody else who voted for him. And the crowd responding, acknowledging that the media is complicit in the entire onslaught. But all of that to say, is there anybody who can reverse this? Is there anybody who can address this? Anybody interested at all in jumping in there and battling back against the DOJ? Donald Trump saying, I may have to do this all again. What the Biden administration is doing is devastating America, and there is only one person who can right this course.
And now, in order to make our country successful, safe, and glorious again, I will probably have to do it again.
So Trump saying with a little bit of a smirk in the air, I'll probably have to do it again. The crowd goes wild. Everybody loves to see it because they know that Trump is different than the rest of the GOP. Everybody else, like the McConnells and the Lindsey Grahams, they just sit around comfortably in their Senate seats, waiting for the Democrats to get done getting fat at the Treasury until it's their turn again. And they can go get fat at the Treasury until they get fat and full, and it's the Democrats' turn again. Everybody's tired of that. Nobody likes to see the weaponization of the DOJ. Trump gave us many examples of exactly how that's happening, demanding. He's really the only person who's speaking up about it. I mean, Jim Jordan and some of the other, Trumpers are sort of also coming up behind him, so to speak. But where's the rest of the party establishment speaking out to the J6ers? Where were the rest of them on the raid? Have any of them even spoken up? Mitch McConnell was asked like 13 times, hey, Mitch, the DOJ went after Donald Trump, the former president of this country. Do you have any concerns about that at all? He says, well, there's flooding in Kentucky, so I'd rather talk about that. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. So that's the GOP not doing anything. But a lot of questions about Trump. Of course, he's facing an onslaught. There are a litany of legal attacks coming his way. He's got DOJ, FBI out of New York, Letitia James. We have the new attorney there, Eric. It's just a whole litany of them. But we have an update on the Mar-a-Lago case. New filing in the Trump Mar-a-Lago saga, drafted going over to the special master Raymond Dearie. You see, this was published October 24th. It's 3 pages coming out of the U.S. Department of Justice, the National Security Division. This is a joint memo from both Trump's team and the prosecutor's office recommending a resolution to the special master. They write, Dear Judge Dearie, Dear Judge Dearie, it's hard for me to say for some reason. Dear Judge Dearie, plaintiff and the government's privilege team, collectively called the parties, have resolved all outstanding attorney-client privilege disputes with respect to the materials that have been segregated. Well, that's interesting. So we don't have any more attorney-client privilege issues at all? Specifically, in the interests of efficiently resolving these issues and avoiding the unnecessary litigation, the parties offer the following. They say, this is from Trump and the prosecution. They say, Trump withdraws. Trump withdraws his initial claims of attorney-client privilege and the attorney work product doctrine with respect to the following materials, all through filter A. All the way through filter C, they give us a big list of the documents. Now, we don't know what these are, right? Document 5, don't know what the title is, don't know if it's emails or, notes or birthday cards or national security top secret nuclear codes. We don't know. But what we do know is Trump is withdrawing those attorney-client privilege claims. Trump is saying that I don't even intend to assert that now, which was kind of a big deal because if you recall, the last time we talked about all of these different spreadsheets, we were putting these items into different buckets. They ran out with 15 boxes, tens of thousands of pages of documents, and we're trying to determine, are these the government's documents or are these Trump's documents? Trump says they're mine. One of the reasons they're his is because of attorney-client privilege and work product doctrine. If Trump is withdrawing those protections, it's sort of like some of those force fields that were up are now going down. Why is that? And the government and Trump, right, this is a joint memo, they say Trump previously did not assert attorney-client privilege or work product doctrine with respect to those items. And they say the parties do agree that these materials can now immediately be provided to the government's case team, so the issues concerning the next force fields, like executive privilege and the Presidential Records Act, can be resolved. And so as we've talked about this in the past, there's sort of, force fields that go up. And if you knock one out, you might have a force field protection from another mechanism. So for example, even though attorney work client and work product privilege doctrine have both been withdrawn, in other words, Trump is not asserting those force fields, there are others. There could be executive privilege force field or Presidential Records Act force field. So now they're saying, now that we've gotten rid of the attorney-client privilege stuff, perfect. Now our team can sort through these because remember, if it is attorney-client and work product doctrine stuff, then that makes it sort of only reviewable by certain teams. So they're withdrawing those parameters so that the different team can come back in and work on it. The government, through its privilege review team, agrees to handle document 17, okay, so whatever that is, in the same manner as the other materials, namely the filter privilege review team will return the originals to Trump but maintain a control copy. Again, we don't know what those are. You can see, in conclusion, the parties jointly, that's an interesting little statement there. Last week, the prosecution filed a document and they said it was a joint document, but it was only signed by the prosecutors. It wasn't signed by the defense. So now they say, in conclusion, the parties jointly and respectfully submit that all issues concerning the attorney-client work product and attorney-client privilege doctrines have been resolved. Now take a look. Signed by Benjamin Hawk. He's over at the National Security Division. Okay, works for the government. Managing assistant at the U.S. Attorney's Office out of Palm Beach. That's Anthony LaCosta. Got that. And we saw that last week. But what we didn't see, unless we missed it, was this. Counsel for Trump, who signed off on the document. The last document, this was all missing. And Trump and his defense team, they filed a response and the judge said, yeah, but you're too late. You filed a response. You should have consulted with them. And they said, well, they didn't consult with us and they just filed it without our input. And they were sort of, kind of scolding, or not scolding, but sort of reminding Special Master Raymond Dearie that he asked for a joint memo and the prosecutors only submitted a one-sided memo. But now this one is joint. Why? Because here's James Trusty. Oh, that's Trump's lawyers. Oh, good. They're on the same document now. Oh, good. Oh, Christopher Kesey. He's also on there. Nice. Along with Evan Corcoran and Lindsay Halligan. All there. Previously, they were not on there. So this actually looks like a joint memo. Great news. Prosecutors not blindsiding them anymore by submitting stuff directly to the courts. But that's only one saga, and we're going to, of course, continue to keep our eyes on that. There is an 11th Circuit issue where the government has now filed with the 11th Circuit to see if they can reverse the entire special master order and remove Special Master Raymond Dearie. We'll see how that goes. Of course, there's going to be a lot of updates on that, and that might change the course of this entire case. I mean, if that happens, Trump's claim is very likely going to be dismissed, and it'll all go dark again. So we'll see. Now, we also have an entirely separate issue that Trump is facing. Liz Cheney and the January 6th Select Committee, they have sent Donald Trump a subpoena. So not only is he facing sort of this criminal investigation out of the Mar-a-Lago documents, he's got Letitia James, he's got Alvin Bragg, who's out of New York, all prosecuting him. He's got inquiries in Georgia and all over the place. But he's also got a January 6th subpoena. Should Donald Trump show up and testify in front of the January 6th Select Committee? I think he should. It'd be a lot of fun. I would love to hear what he had to say about this. I think that he'd probably have some choice words for Liz Cheney, and it would be good for America to see exactly what is on Trump's mind as it relates to this, because so far it's only been the Liz show, and we're all tired of the Liz show. But Cheney doesn't want this to turn into something that she loses control of. She sent Trump a subpoena. She may be a little bit cautious now, wondering, did she awaken a monster?
Is the committee open to his supposed offer, or at least behind the scenes offer, of going on live television?
So the committee treats this matter with great seriousness, and we are going to proceed in terms of the questioning of the former president under oath. Mm-hmm. It may take multiple days, and it will be done with a level of rigor and discipline and seriousness that it deserves. We are not going to allow the former president. He's not going to turn this into a circus. This isn't going to be, his first debate against Joe Biden and the circus and
the entire January 6th Select Committee is a circus. They brought in Cassidy Hutchinson, the clavicle girl, to tell us about Trump almost commandeering the Secret Service agent's vehicle and taking over the Capitol building. They have presented no adversarial witnesses. The whole thing has been a giant book report with a bunch of very dull-witted Democrats reading from teleprompters day after day after day. It's not anything resembling an actual criminal process, has no inkling of due process or equal protection of the laws. The entire thing's a circus. So why wouldn't they bring Donald Trump in here to come in here and partake?
Food fight that became. This is far too serious set of issues, and we've made clear exactly what his obligations are, and we're proceeding with that set out.
If you don't get cooperation from him, do you have time for this legal fight?
No.
We have many alternatives that we will consider if the former president decides that he is not going to comply with his legal obligation. The legal obligation every American citizen has to comply with a subpoena.
They are really trying hard. If Trump denies this thing, what comes next? Well, we've already seen this. Steve Bannon got prosecuted, got convicted, got sentenced to 60 days, 2 months in prison. Would that same thing happen to Donald Trump? Many people say, no, there's not enough time. By the time this works its way through the courts, the January 6th Select Committee is likely to be dissolved. The Republicans will win the House of Representatives. They will turn around and say, we don't need this garbage Select Committee that has been illegally constituted this entire time to continue. This circus, as Liz Cheney called it, is going to be disbanded, and Liz Cheney can go back to whatever it is she does. I don't even know what she does. Warmongering with whatever entity her daddy works for. Who knows? But she's not going to be in Congress because she got obliterated by 40 points. in Wyoming. Shout out to our friends in Wyoming. But Liz is a little bit panicky. Did she seem a little bit nervous there? She sort of like, uh-oh, we invited Trump. Now what if Trump wants to show up here? She seemed a little bit sort of, we're not going to let this, look at that face right there. Uh-oh, right there. There it is. I didn't think I was going to be able to freeze frame it, but there it is. That's the panic face. That's the, we're not going to let this turn into a circus. Sort of looking down to the left. Here it is.
The committee treats this matter with great seriousness. And we are going to proceed in terms of the questioning of the former president under oath. It may take multiple days. And it will be done with a level of rigor and discipline and seriousness that it deserves. We are not going to allow the former president. He's not going to turn this into a circus. This isn't going to be, his first debate against Joe Biden. And
yes, he is, Liz. You can't control that. You can't control it. Put it open, broadcast it. Let us all see it. Broadcast it just like you did with Cassidy Hutchinson, the clavicle queen, the one who detailed the horrific moment that Trump almost wrecked the country. We have some bizarre people in charge. Now, we also have Nancy Pelosi. Now, she's struggling. They're all trying to find ways to get under Trump's skin. Nancy Pelosi thinks that if she is insulting enough to Donald Trump, if she squeezes on his manhood, I was trying to not say that. If Nancy Pelosi squeezes on Trump's manhood, she thinks that maybe she can goad him into showing up in front of the committee.
Take it to the bank. I have to ask you about the January 6th committee. On Friday, they officially subpoenaed Donald Trump. Do you think he'll actually appear for the deposition? And what does it say to the American people if he doesn't?
I don't think he's man enough to show up.
Oh, anything else? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker. I literally could not hear what you said.
I said, you asked me if I thought he was going to show up. And I said, I don't think he's man enough to show up. I don't think his lawyers will want him to show up because he has to testify under oath. But I don't think he'll show up. I don't think he's man enough. We'll see. We'll see if he's man enough to show up.
Feels like a very gendered insult to connect manliness with comporting with the law. Feels a little bit patriarchal, actually. Man enough. It's a gendered phrase, isn't it not? I'd like her to define that phrase for us, please. Yeah, it's a strange phrase coming out of the very diverse and inclusive Democratic House leader.
And the public should make a judgment. No one is above the law. If we believe that, then they should make a judgment about how he responds to that request.
And if he doesn't respond to that request, what should the American people take from that?
I should take that he thinks that he is above the law.
Or that he's a woman.
Whatever actions the committee may take is up to them. I've kept my distance from their decision-making. But whatever they decide will also send a message about his respect. He isn't honoring the oath we take to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. That's a serious oath that we all take.
Yeah, Nancy.
And
you botched the oath on that one pretty badly when you failed to secure the Capitol building. Wasn't it your House Sergeant at Arms and the Senate Sergeant at Arms who were supposed to be responsible for making sure that the most important building on one of the most important days in this country was secure? Donald Trump made several offers, including to Mayor Muriel Bowser and to the Senate Sergeant at Arms through the Capitol Hill Police. But you turned it down. Where was your constitutional obligation to protect America back in the days leading up to January 6th? Wasn't anywhere to be found. But she keeps going back to this manliness thing, which is strange because if Trump doesn't show up, then that means he's not manly. And what does that mean about what is that? Is it womanly? What's the alternative of not manly? Is it, I don't even know. This gets complicated. There's too many different divisions in the alphabet to sort all this stuff out, and I can't keep track, so we'll just defer.
He Most of us have more respect for the office he held than he had. But why are we talking about him? We're talking about the future. Babies born now will live into the next century. We're going to make sure that we have a world that is safe for them, a democracy that is strong for them, and values that are respected, the dignity and worth of every person.
Not much out of her mouth other than some very insulting gendered terms towards the former president. And she's our speaker. She's the House Speaker. Yeah, not good. All right. Now, this is an amazing clip. This clip is sort of a long one, but I want to go through it because it's just outstanding. MSNBC anchor gets blown out by alleged insurrectionists. These are Trump voters who don't buy the mainstream standard narrative coming out of these agencies.
Mastriano was at the insurrection and he was photographed breaching one of the restricted areas. Is that okay?
Which area? Because I saw video where Capitol officers were taking away barriers and unlocking
Opening doors.
People. So,
Yep, we covered it here.
They opened the gates.
So it shouldn't be disqualifying for an elected official if they participated in January 6th?
He didn't strike anybody. He didn't hurt anybody.
And the only one that died was a protester there, not a Capitol Police
Unarmed
officer.
female veteran was
That's
shot
the
by
only one that
police.
died.
That's the only one who died.
A police officer did die.
No,
He
it
died
was
of
a
heart attack.
stroke.
That's
That's not on site.
caused by that. That's because
Right.
he shouldn't have been a police officer. It was one woman.
So
who was
what do
shot.
you make, though, overall of January 6th? And
So backing up on that point, did you hear? Let's go through just a couple of these little lies here. You hear from this individual. Let's just slow this down. This is an MSNBC news anchor, and the way she's characterizing this whole saga is called an insurrection, right? Listen.
Mastriano was at the insurrection and he
At the
was
insurrection.
photographed
That's the
breaching
label.
one of the restricted
At the insurrection.
areas. Is that okay?
Which area? Because I saw video where Capitol officers were taking away barriers and unlocking
Opening doors.
People. So,
Oh, that's it.
I mean,
They opened the gates.
So
and
it
let them
shouldn't
in.
be disqualifying for an elected official if
definitely.
they
as long as
participated in January 6th?
He didn't strike anybody. He didn't hurt anybody.
And the only one that died was a protester there, not a Capitol Police
Unarmed
officer.
female.
And here on this channel, we watched video, many of them, of police opening the barricades up outside of the Capitol building and even inside the Capitol building. We saw that one clip where officers were actually getting messages sort of over the radio. One officer goes up to another officer, taps him on the shoulder, and then says, whispers something in his ear. And then all 4 or 5 of them all stand down. They all walk back inside. And that's when the crowd walks in. And every single one of those persons was going to be considered to be a trespasser, right? That was criminal trespass now. That's parading, picketing, whatever inside of the Capitol building. Many, many hundreds of people out of the 1,000 or so who have been actually prosecuted, many hundreds, all charged with trespass crimes, just like you would get at any bar or Old Town or public event or concert or anything like that. Minor. And these people didn't do anything that it was even closely considerable to that. They were never asked to leave, many of them. Many of them were encouraged in there before they got charged with criminal trespass. Now you can make the argument that they should have known or not should have known, but if the cops are waving you in and standing down, that's sort of implied consent to, all right, go on in. Not presuming you're going to get charged with crimes after the fact. Now, this other lady, this is the same sort of situation that Jake Tapper found himself in when he was talking to Boris Johnson. He said to Boris, people died. Oh my God, people died on January 6th. This is one of these talking points that people on MSNBC and all of the other CNN sites, they can't get over. People died on January 6th. It was Ashley Babbitt, and she was shot to death by somebody who was buried underneath the dark of cover for a very long time. But the talking points still reside top of mind for these people at MSNBC.
Female veteran was
That's
shot
the only
by
one that
police.
died.
That's the only one who died.
A police officer did die.
No.
Yeah, that was Brian Sicknick. Remember Brian Sicknick? He died the next day. And it was by natural causes. Many people at the time were saying, oh no, he got sprayed with bear spray. No, nobody was charged with his murder. He got hit over the head. Nope, nobody charged with anything. They did a deep dive investigation. They gave him a state funeral, and they paraded his death. They exploited his death, to be more accurate. They took advantage of his death. They exploited his memory and ransacked his family for their political purposes. Now, it may have been good. The family may have gotten help and care, and it may have been very peaceful, and they got, whatever healing and hope. I hope they're doing very well and very recovered. But the Democrats, they didn't give a damn about their well-being. They wanted a dead cop that they could parade around in front of all of America. And they did. And they're still doing it. And this lady is still making the same talking point, the same hoax. She's shoving it down their gullets again. Yeah, but a police officer died of natural causes. Didn't you see the coroner's report, lady?
Protester there, not a Capitol Police
An unarmed
officer.
female veteran was
That's
shot
the
by
only one that
police.
died.
That's the only one who died.
A police officer did die.
No, it
Died of
was a
heart attack.
stroke.
That's
That's not on site.
caused by that. That's
Fact
He
check.
shouldn't have been a police officer. It was
Fact
one
check,
woman
lady.
who
So
shot
what do
the
you
police.
make, though, overall of January 6th? I mean, it was, watching that footage, it was pretty disturbing. I mean, there were people throwing excrement at the walls, and it was it's the Capitol.
It looked a lot like Antifa's actions.
Yeah, it looked a lot, except on a much smaller scale. It looked the same as the Black Lives Matter riots.
That's what I saw, the similarities to
around the
be.
country, not just
Minneapolis
one.
burns, Kenosha burns.
But so it's okay
Waukesha
just because
burns.
one side that you
No,
disagree with?
I'm
it's
saying
okay
Antifa
for-
No, I'm saying
infiltrated.
it's good for one, it's good for the other.
Anybody
I don't
who
see it
harmed
that way.
anybody who caused property destruction, that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah,
but if you're
on
there
either
making
side.
your voice heard at the
Right.
people's house, no less,
Yeah.
People's house.
that's, again, it's a fundamental constitutional right of an American citizen. And people should not be being held political prisoner because of it.
For misdemeanors. That's East Germany.
That's East Germany.
Tactics.
Yeah, that's what's scary.
Especially when they're being waved in. They're asking for $34 million now. More. $34 million in addition to what the DOJ already gets, which is about $2.7 billion. And they're making homegrown domestic violent extremism and anybody who's even remotely connected to it the subject of the Inquisition from the DOJ and the FBI. This guy's saying, yeah, where was all of that for BLM or Antifa that caused real damage all over the place? The Capitol building, yeah, it was not a good scene. We were streaming live that day. I was not happy with what I saw, of course. But it was done and over in about 3.5 hours, and they were back in there voting for the president that night. So it wasn't the end of the world. They have turned it into a 2-year political inquisition to go and take out the entire Republican Party. And he is saying feels a little bit inappropriate, especially when they're encouraging people to waltz right in the front door.
It was an actual fiery but mostly peaceful protest.
Oh!
And the other ones that were the opposite.
Was the protest legitimate in your eyes because
Fiery but mostly peaceful protest. That's all it was. Let's rewind that again. This woman wins the internet of the day. She is characterizing the January 6th protests in the media's terms. Very simple. It was a fiery but mostly peaceful protest.
That's what's scary.
It was an actual fiery but mostly peaceful protest.
Outstanding.
And the other ones that were the opposite.
was the protest legitimate in your eyes
Administration,
because
I feel like, is using it as their Reichstag fire.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're using it as.
Very astute
do you
observation.
think that President Trump could have quelled the violence that day?
Not him personally.
I don't think so,
I don't
no.
think so.
It started while he was still speaking. I was actually there. I was there to see what I thought was going to be the last time I ever saw Trump with Little Diana.
So did he tell everybody to go and start rioting?
No.
I didn't think so.
No, and it actually,
No, he didn't.
I stayed for the whole speech, like a ton of people did. And then we all headed to the Capitol because he said, let's go to the Capitol and peacefully let our voices
keyword.
be heard. And we get to the Capitol and we're like, what the hell's going on? Because it had already happened.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw Democratic operatives instigating people to
Oh,
cross
totally.
barriers.
Of course, they were all over the place. Even the FBI and the DOJ know it. They won't admit it. They had Ray Epps on there, like number 16, FBI most wanted after this all took place. And then guess what happened? Oh, shoot, he's one of ours, FBI said. So they went, they got their eraser, like, because they're usually working with crayons and markers and coloring books over there. So they get their eraser and they're like, get Ray Epps off there. And they erase Ray Epps off of the most wanted list. We saw Jill Sanborn hauled in front of Congress. She was asked by Ted Cruz, were there any undercover federal agents in there instigating some of these events? And she says, well, of course, Ted. I can't talk about those things because of ongoing investigations. And, I can't tell you how we do things over here, which means, of course, they were there. Still haven't found the pipe bomber. Don't know where all of the Fed boys were hiding, but we certainly know that they were there, or they were incompetent, because how could they possibly allow this to happen unless they wanted it to? Which, as this young man said, he thinks they were allowing it to happen. I agree with him. This has given them entirely new mechanisms by which to remove Donald Trump. They wanted to set him up so that he could fall right in it and blame the whole thing on him. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi has a camera crew. She's walking around the Capitol building on fake phone calls with Mike Pence. Are you okay? Have you been murdered yet? They say we're going to have to be here for 3 days because they are coming in here with axes. No, I haven't gotten my head chopped off yet, but it might be any minute now. Totally ridiculous. They were back there in 4 hours. Dumb stories, all being used for political purposes. That's what the DNC is doing these days. And they're joined by their newest member, who is certainly going to be Liz Cheney soon enough. But that's Donald Trump. Of course, he's saying he's probably going to do the whole thing again. We will continue to cover. Thank you for joining us as we make our way through the Trump saga and more, and for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right. And so we're jumping into a couple other segments, and that one took a long time. I didn't realize how much time we were going to spend on that one, but there was a lot of meat and potatoes in there. But we're now talking about the Biden student loan discharges, and this is a little bit of a shorter segment, so we'll be able to fly through some of this. Court of Appeals put the roadblocks right in front of Joe Biden and his efforts to waive and cancel student loans for many students all over America. The judge issued an order, very short order, but I want to share it with you here today. You can see this order filed out of the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, State of Nebraska versus Joe Biden in his official capacity as president. This is on appeal from a lower level court, the Missouri court out of St. Louis. They took this case up and they said that the Biden student loan executive order was unconstitutional. Now the Court of Appeals has come down and they've ruled as follows. They say, appellant's emergency motion for an administrative stay that stops the government from discharging any student loan under their cancellation program is granted. So the Biden administration at this moment can't just start dismissing student loans. Now, it doesn't mean it's permanent, but it is until this court rules on the appellant's motion for the injunction. So all of this stuff is making its way through the court right now. The Biden White House was on a hair trigger, getting ready to start disclosing loans or discharging loans. They wanted to get all of this done before the midterm elections so that they could basically bribe voters into going in and voting for them. And the Court of Appeals has come back down and said, halt, putting the stay in place. They are also ordering expedited briefings very soon. They say the appellee's response is due by 5 p.m. October 24th, and then we come back on Tuesday, October 25th. And so we've got basically today and tomorrow, all of this filed in the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. And so that puts a big roadblock on the Biden administration's ability to start canceling those student loans. They said that this was going to be impacting a whole swath of voters, and now the court says no. Even though the 8th Circuit stopped the cancellation of the student loans from going into effect, the White House says that they're moving forward full steam. Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, is responding to the new order. She says, tonight's temporary order does not prevent borrowers from applying for student aid, and we still encourage eligible borrowers to join, look at this number, the nearly 22 million Americans whose information that the Department of Education already has. It does not prevent us from renewing those applications and preparing them for transmission to loan servicers. Okay, so in other words, 22 million Americans have already submitted something, and they've already applied. They're already taking this into the studentaid.gov website, trying to get their loans discharged. And you have to ask yourself, that's a pretty big, nice chunk of voters out there. 22 million people who are sitting there on studentaid.gov with those warm and fuzzy feelings, just saying, oh, perfect, baby. I'm going to get $10,000 discharged. Oh, yeah, honey. We're going to get $20,000 with our Pell Grants thrown out. All with those warm and fuzzies. all thanking Biden and the Democrats. 22 million people. 22 million. Holy moly. And so all of that is going to, I would presume, influence an election, regardless of whether or not it actually goes through. The Court of Appeals has said, nope, stop. That is not moving forward at the moment. But the Biden administration, they say, well, we don't really care about courts. We haven't cared about courts for a long time. CDC, doesn't matter. We're in charge. And they say that it does not prevent us from reviewing those applications and preparing them to send over. So as soon as they have an opening, as soon as that line of scrimmage opens up and they can drive this thing through, they're going to do it. Karine says it's also important to note that the order does not reverse the trial court's dismissal of the case or suggest that the case has merit. It merely prevents the debt from being discharged until the court makes a decision. We will continue to move full speed ahead with our preparations in compliance with this order, and the administration is going to continue to fight Republicans who are suing our efforts to stop us from helping working families. From Karine Jean-Pierre over at the White House. Now, you see this little bat they have here, this little spooky Halloween bat. Can you guys see this here? Let's open this up. Yeah, see they have a little bat flying around on the White House up there. It's very spooky, but I guess it's very festive. Nice touch from our government. Yeah, so there's little bats flying around. All right. So, okay, so at least they're festive out there. But that's the White House, of course, responding to this. The judge said, you're done. The White House said, well, for now, we're still prepping this stuff and we're going to shove it through if you like it or not. But Biden really, I think, doesn't know too much about what is actually going on here. The president is confused. He seems to think that he passed the student loan bill into law, eking it through by a very close margin. Unfortunately, the student loan cancellation program wasn't a bill. It didn't go through Congress. It was an executive order that came out of this guy's White House. So what is he talking about?
The other piece what we're trying to do is, you probably are aware, I've just signed a law that's being challenged by my Republican colleagues, the same people who got PPP loans for up to close to, in some cases, up to $500,000-$600,000. They have no problem with that. The individuals in Congress got those. But what we've provided for is, if you went to school, if you qualify for a Pell Grant, you qualify for you qualify for $20,000 in debt forgiveness. Secondly, if you don't have one of those loans, you just get $10,000 written off. It's passed. I got it passed by a vote or two, and it's in effect. And already a total of, I think it's now 13 million people have applied for that service.
Got it passed by a vote or two? Joe, it was an executive order that you signed. There was no vote, which is a little bit of a problem. Because are the people who are bringing him documents to sign, are they telling him where the documents came from? Or are they just shoving them in front of his face? It came from, what is this? It came from Congress. Just shut up, Joe. Just sign it. Just shut up. What about this one? It's an executive order. It came from, it's a birthday card to Hunter. Okay, just shut up and just sign it. Okay, ice cream, right? They have no idea. So, this one, it came from Congress, but it didn't come from Congress. It came from executive orders. So it's a big difference because one has legitimacy and a constitutional underpinning. One, if it came through Congress, would be legitimate. There's nothing really to contest there. They have the power of the purse. They can spend money. They can pass these bills however they want to do it. The president doesn't have that ability, especially imposing executive orders that might implicate, $400 billion plus of debt in a country that's already shackled to death with debt. But he doesn't know. He just doesn't know where he is or what he signed or how it got signed. And nobody even asks him any questions about it. He just it doesn't really matter. Those are details, Rob. Those are details. Stick to the big picture stuff. But there is probably a good reason why he doesn't know. It's because he doesn't know where he is. Joe Biden falls asleep or something, maybe worse, when he's on an interview with MSNBC. And I'm pretty sure in this 3-cut clip that the MSNBC guys snap it at him. Hey, President, wake up. We're talking here.
I have not made that formal decision, but it's my intention. My intention to run again And we have time to make that decision.
Dr. Biden is for it. Mr. President.
Dr. Biden thinks that, my wife thinks that we're doing something very important.
Okay. Goodness. He really came through on that last bit there. I wasn't sure he was going to make it. Got a little dicey there at the end, but he brought it home. Now, did you see there are three different cuts in this? We've got one angle, two angle, and then a third angle again. Okay. Now they do this when they're hiding something. They clip something out of here, even pretty worse. That's why they do the old switcheroo, right? If it's a straight shot, they don't need, you don't need three separate videos spliced together. But here changes and you hear him up. Let's listen to this again. My goodness.
I have not made that formal decision, but it's my intention to run again. And we have time to make that decision.
Dr. Biden is for it. Mr. President.
Dr. Biden thinks that, my wife thinks that, that we're doing something very important.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's in one of those edits, he might have just fallen over or something, they just propped it back up. Who knows? But that's our very sleepy president. And holy moly, Trump can really hit the home run with some of those nicknames from time to time. Talk about sleepy Joe Biden. The dude is literally falling asleep while he's being asked about the possibility of running again. Do you have stamina? Can you stay awake for a whole second term, sir? I can, probably. Falling over, because he can't stay awake or cognizant. It's not good. He's in charge of the country. He's running everything. So that's Biden. Now we'll see how they respond or what the Court of Appeals does and continue to cover the student loans discharge story. Thank you for subscribing and joining us as we continue to cover. All right, we've got two more segments, and we've got some reading to do on this one because this one's kind of fun. We've got the Fauci-Psaki depositions. Court just said they're getting deposed, and it's going to be a good one. A federal district court just delivered a big home run for people who want answers to a lot of questions that came out during the pandemic. Fauci and Psaki ordered to be deposed by a federal court. We're going to take a look at this. Remember the two people we're talking about. They're just two in a long list of other people who have been ordered to also be deposed, to sit and answer questions based on a lawsuit brought by the states. And it is a lot of fun. I've got a lot of questions for them that I'd like to see answered. We'll see what comes out in the deposition. But let's take a look at the document that was filed here. And you can see it's semi-big. The state of Missouri versus Joe Biden. Judge ordering the depositions of Psaki and Fauci. 28-page order drafted by Judge Terry A. Doherty. A memorandum order regarding witness depositions. So it's an order with a memo. Oftentimes on this channel, we see orders and they're just a one-page order, 2 pages, very small, very short. Do this thing and do this thing. That's it, signed off on by the judge. In this case, the judge is drafting a memorandum order, meaning there's going to be a big explanation for why these depositions should take place. The judge writes, this court granted prior motions for expedited preliminary injunction-related discovery, saying that I granted the state, which in this case is the state of Missouri, suing Joe Biden, alleging that there was collusion between the big tech companies and people in the Biden administration. They're suing. Missouri said, we want answers on this collusion. We know that you were putting the pressure on Facebook and others during the pandemic, and we got questions for you. So the judge granted expedited discovery, saying that both of these sides can get access to materials. The discovery schedule required the parties to meet about any deposition requests. The parties were to file a joint statement as to their positions, and the parties have done so. The judge is saying this is the ruling on the witness depositions. The states want depositions from Tons of people. Remember, all of these people were named in the lawsuit. Joe Biden, Vivek Murthy, Xavier Becerra, Department of Health and Human Services, Anthony Fauci, NIAID, CDC, we got Alejandro Mayorkas, Jen Easterly, Cybersecurity, Nina Janke Jankowicz, Karine Jean-Pierre, Jennifer Shopcorn, Robert Silvers, and others. Okay, a whole list of people. The states that are suing are Missouri and Louisiana. Shout out to our friends in both of those incredible states. They're suing, and the court gives us some background. The court says, on May 5th, states sued Biden. In the complaint and the amended complaint, the states allege that the Biden administration has colluded or coerced social media companies to suppress disfavored speakers, viewpoints, and content on social media platforms. They labeled all this stuff disinformation and misinformation and malinformation, right? These three new categories of speech that really didn't exist until the pandemic hit. Now we all have to be extra cognizant about what we say, lest we fall into one of these fake categories. The states allege that the suppression of these disfavored speakers, these viewpoints, and these contents of these conversations constitutes government action, meaning the government was acting on these private tech companies. And that, because they were doing that, it violates the state's freedom of speech in the First Amendment. In the lawsuit, they set forth several examples of the suppression of free speech. One of them includes the Hunter Biden laptop story prior to the 2020 presidential election, which we covered here, which was absolutely suppressed everywhere. Number two, another issue, speech about the lab leak theory and COVID-19's origin, another thing that we were suppressed on and actually got a strike for misinformation on. Speech about the efficiency of masks and COVID-19 lockdowns. Speech about election integrity and the security of voting by mail, censorship and the suppression of different plaintiffs, and people at the Gateway Pundit and others, and censorship of a co-director of Health Freedom Louisiana on various social media platforms. The states move for the following government officials to be deposed. Here's the list. Look at this juicy meatball right here laid out deliciously for us. Everybody's on this list. We got a lot of questions for all of them. Psaki, White House Digital Strategy, Rob Flaherty's on there. Andrew Slavitt, COVID-19 Advisory. Jen Psaki, FBI Agent Elvis Chan. CISA Director Jen Easterly. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy. And others. All sitting for depositions. Now, that's what the states want. Missouri, Louisiana. They say, we definitely want to hear from Psaki and Fauci, so get them ready. Now, the defendants, the government, the Bidens, of course, they opposed the depositions of everybody. They say, nah, we definitely don't want to do that. Now, they give us some law, and they are going through the different rules for when we can do depositions and not. And so we're going to see how the court applies all of the rules here in a minute. So we'll fast forward through some of this. But they say that the government, the Biden people, they've objected to the state's requests for depositions. They say, well, first of all, you didn't name them in the original complaint, and so they're outside the scope. They're like, well, you didn't sue them originally. Karine Jean-Pierre was not in the original lawsuit, and so you can't cite her. And they say also that the states have not demonstrated exceptional circumstances to depose high-ranking officials. High-ranking officials get extra protections, They're high-ranking after all. And we have to make sure that they're protected against very inconvenient depositions from the lowly states. And the government says they haven't met that burden. Each proposed opponent must do so on and so forth. And you can see they're analyzing the factors. Now, the states say that the officials are needed for the reasons that follow. The states start with Fauci. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the NIAID director and the White House chief medical advisor for the Bidens. Missouri and Louisiana, they want him, and they want him bad. They say Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is a named defendant in this case, is the director for all sorts of medical operations. And we move to depose him for substantial reasons. First, the states claim, this is the judge writing, The states claim that Dr. Fauci is directly involved with multiple social media censorship campaigns against COVID-19 misinformation. The states argue that, quote, speech backed by great scientific credibility and with enormous potential nationwide impact has contradicted Dr. Fauci's views. It has been censored because of the insistence of Dr. Fauci. Fauci says this is how the science goes. Everybody else says no. Guess what happens on social media? Everything that is not in alignment with Fauci, it's suppressed. It's gone. The states have some examples. They say the first one is Dr. Fauci's efforts to discredit any theory that COVID-19 was the result of a lab leak. The states say that Fauci, quote, had funded a risky gain-of-function research at Wuhan. And all of that was led by Peter Daszak. In turn, that meant that if there were truth behind the theory, that Dr. Fauci and Dr. Daszak were colluding in this story. And we covered this at length during our pandemic extravaganza. I mean, back when this channel was just starting in 2020, we talked about the pandemic basically nonstop. It's it. We talked about Fauci, Daszak, EcoHealth Alliance, the entire litany. And shortly thereafter, it was all suppressed. It continues. In late January and early February 2020, information on the lab leak theory began to spread to the public. And we got our first warning. Our first strike on this channel was a warning for medical misinformation right around this time. Soon thereafter, Dr. Fauci participated in a conference call with scientists and science funding authorities, which may or may not have been about discrediting the lab leak theory. We even looked at the emails for this. The states assert that after the conference call, influential individuals signed public statements that were placed in science journals in an attempt to discredit the lab leak theory. We read through all of these. During this time, states also urged that Dr. Fauci engaged in written and oral communications with Mark Zuckerberg about the government's COVID response, and allegedly widespread social media censorship of the lab leak hypothesis ensued. They say states further this argument against Dr. Fauci by pointing out that the publicly available emails between Dr. Fauci and Dr. Collins regarding their efforts to discredit the lab leak theory, which states assert led to the censorship of the theory online. They say that these emails from Fauci and Collins were both aware of certain scientists' concerns that the COVID virus was bioengineered, they said. However, those same scientists authored a paper for Nature Medicine that discredited the lab leak theory just days earlier. And they advocated that to Fauci. That paper was sent to Fauci for approval. The states allege that Fauci and Mark Zuckerberg commenced a course of friendly oral communications about the government and their response. The states wish to ascertain the contents of these communications in depositions. What was Mark and Dr. Fauci talking about? On April 16, 2020, Collins emailed Fauci a link to a Brett Baer article on Fox about the lab leak theory. Collins expressed concerns over whether the NIH can help to take down the very destructive conspiracy. That seems to be growing in momentum, and we read through all of that here. He further stated that he hoped the Nature Medicine article would settle this. And Dr. Fauci cited that article while speaking from a podium at the White House. Fauci and Collins also communicated about the Great Barrington Declaration, which was a scientific critique of the effects of a prolonged lockdown as a response to something authored by several other doctors. There were emails back and forth. Dr. Collins sent one over to Fauci and said, "Hey, Tony, this proposal from these 3 fringe epidemiologists who met with the secretary seemed to be getting attention. Can you deal with this?" Fauci began making a series of public statements that were highly critical of the declaration, calling it total nonsense and ridiculous. And there was a senior Health and Human Services official called for a quick and devastating takedown. Now, they say that Fauci was also involved in Twitter's permanent suspension of Alex Berenson. Remember him? He was a very big sort of anti-COVID thought leader, really, during the time. Fauci got rid of him. Berenson's tweets consisted of science-based objections to young people, The states say that Berenson disclosed internal Twitter communications revealing that a senior White House official, including Andrew Slavitt specifically, pressured Twitter to deplatform Berenson. The White House pressured Twitter to deplatform somebody. Twitter did. Fauci publicly described Berenson's opinions on the vaccine as horrifying. Biden followed Fauci's steps and made a statement that they're killing people by not censoring this information. Twitter subsequently permanently banned and suspended Berenson. Berenson posted different Twitter emails indicating that a board member from Pfizer pressured Twitter to deplatform Berenson. In the emails, Pfizer executive allegedly claimed that Berenson's speech should be censored because it posed a threat to the safety of Fauci. It's all about that. So got to cancel Berenson because Fauci might get injured. Yeah. The states argue that this creates an inference that there was collusion between Slavitt and Pfizer and others. Now, the government says that no, they say that Fauci has no direct communications with social media companies. The states say that, well, we shouldn't be required to accept that. Okay. The government says Fauci, we've got all these different liaisons. Fauci should be immunized because he doesn't directly conversate with these big tech platforms. But the states say, well, we're not simply accepting those blanket statements as they're submitted. And they argue 3 reasons why Fauci should be questioned under oath. We're not taking your word for it. The states say, first, Dr. Fauci has already refused to verify under oath his own interrogatory responses. Interrogatories are a list of questions that you send to either side to sort of save time. You send tell me all this crap and you fill it out. Fauci apparently has filled one out, but he's not filing it out under oath. They say that the NIAID's responses were instead verified by Dr. Jill Harper, who was not named in the complaint. We don't want Jill's affirmations. We don't care. We want yours, Anthony. Accordingly, Dr. Fauci has made no statements under oath regarding his communications with big tech, and that violates this court's orders. They say next, the states say that even if Dr. Fauci can prove that he never communicated with big tech, there are compelling reasons to suggest that Fauci has acted through intermediaries or acted on behalf of others in procuring the censorship of credible scientific opinions. The states argue that even if Dr. Fauci acted indirectly or as an intermediary, it's still relevant to the states and to their motion. And the court agrees. And finally, plaintiffs argue that Fauci's credibility has been in question on matters related to misinformation since 2020. States say that Dr. Fauci has made public statements on the efficacy of masks, the percentage of the population needed for herd immunity, the NIAID's funding of gain-of-function research, the lab leak theory, and more. The states say that his comments on these issues are relevant to the matter at hand and further reasons why Dr. Fauci should be deposed. The states say that they should not be simply required to accept Fauci's self-serving blanket denials that were issued from someone other than him at face value. And the court says, we agree with that. So the court concludes here. They say, after reviewing the states and the Biden administration's arguments, the court finds that the states have proven that Dr. Fauci has personal knowledge about the issue concerning censorship across social media as it relates to the pandemic. The court has considered that Dr. Fauci is a high-ranking official. We know that, especially as he's the director of the NIAID and he's the chief medical advisor to the president. The court sees only the potential burden imposed upon Fauci as a result of him being deposed is that of his time. That's really the only downside. If he has to be deposed, it's time. However, the court acknowledges that any person who is being deposed must sacrifice their time. And it does not see any burden imposed on Fauci that outweighs the court's need for the information in order to make an informed decision. So the court is sort of saying, I know it's a pain, a deposition is a pain, and he is a high-ranking official, but we really do need this information. And the states have proven that he's kind of in the center. He's kind of the nexus of a lot of these issues. So we're going to allow the depositions forward. Finally, the court writes, the court is aware of a number of substantive reasons why Fauci's deposition should be taken. The first is that the publicly available emails that prove that Fauci was communicating and acting as an intermediary for others in order to censor information from being shared. Judge says, I've seen those emails too. Yeah, I've seen them. The second is that Fauci has yet to give any statements under oath in this matter. No, he deferred that over to his underling. And the third is that the court has no doubt that Dr. Fauci was engaging in communications with high-ranking social media officials. And that is extremely relevant at hand. Additionally, the crux of this case is the fundamental right of free speech. Preach, Judge! Any burden that may be imposed on Dr. Fauci is wholly outweighed by the importance of the state's allegations of suppression of free speech. Accordingly, the court finds that the states have satisfied their burden of proving why a deposition of Dr. Anthony Fauci is necessary in this case and exceptional circumstances are present. Accordingly, it is ordered that Dr. Anthony Fauci cooperate in the state's request to depose him for purposes of their preliminary injunction and discovery. Deposed. Now you can see they go through a very similar analysis. Rob Flaherty is obviously somebody who had extensive oral meetings on Twitter, Meta, and YouTube. Plaintiffs say that he consistently communicated with U.S. public policy leaders through COVID insight reports. He sent it over to Meta. Meta allegedly contacts Flaherty when there's new issues that pop up. Okay, they are communicating back and forth. Flaherty had specific knowledge about Meta's attempts to censor the disinformation dozen. Footnote down here. Supposedly, there are a dozen accounts across social media that spread the massive misinformation, they said. So they went after the disinformation dozen. Obviously, this guy is highly involved. So the court says it is ordered that Rob Flaherty cooperate with the deposition. Andrew Slavitt, same story. He's at the White House. The judge orders Andrew cooperate with the request to be deposed. And there are several others, but we'll finish up with a channel favorite here, now that Zulu's in the chat. Jen Psaki, former White House press secretary for President Biden. She's also a named defendant in this case, and the states moved to depose Psaki for a whole multitude of reasons. The most pressing being that as the White House chief spokesman, Psaki made a series of public statements that did the following. 1, attested to her personal knowledge of the participation of high-level White House officials with big tech. And number 2, she, every day out there, was reinforcing the public threats of adverse legal consequences to social media platforms if they did not increase the censorship of views disfavored by federal officials. Thus, she both admitted to personal knowledge of pressure to censor from federal officials directly engaged, and she was doing it in a highly impactful and visible fashion. Jen Psaki was out there every day saying, oh, we just wish that these social media companies, we wish that Facebook and Twitter were being more responsible, blah, 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 all day long. We're all sitting here. Jen, we quiet down a little bit. Okay, you changed your story already. You said the opposite 2 months ago. But the state's file, they say, the state's complaint details the statements that Psaki made as they relate to these claims. For example, on May 5th, Psaki stated at a White House press conference, she said, quote, "The major platforms have a responsibility related to the health and safety of all Americans to stop amplifying untrustworthy content and disinformation and misinformation, especially related to COVID and vaccinations and elections," Psaki said. Psaki stated at another press conference, July 2021, that the administration is, quote, "in regular touch with social media platforms," and that engagements happened between members of our senior staff and members of the COVID team. So Psaki's like, oh yeah, no, we text each other every day. What's the big deal? And she also stated that there was a disinformation dozen. All 12 of them remain active on Facebook, despite some even being banned on other platforms, including Facebook. Ones that Facebook owns. She said Facebook needs to move more quickly to remove harmful, violative posts that will be within their policies, are often up for days. That's too long. The information spreads too quickly. We have to delete. Jen Psaki's like, give me the keyboard, baby. Delete. She wants them gone. Psaki also called on social media platforms for consistency in banning disfavored speakers, saying you shouldn't be banned from one platform and not others. If you're off of Twitter, you should be thrown off of YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. You should be deplatformed entirely. That's what Psaki wants it. They say that the states further allege that along with these statements, Psaki also demanded, quote, robust strategies for social media companies to censor harmful posts. She stated that President Biden himself was concerned about social media platforms and thought that they should be held accountable for the harms that they cause by spreading disinfo. And she also said that the Biden administration remained regular contact with them. The state sent a bunch of interrogatories, list of questions to Karine Jean-Pierre. She's Psaki's successor, but she couldn't answer everything because she lacks the knowledge, because Psaki no longer works there. That's why we need Psaki. Now, the court continues, they say. The judge writes, the court finds that the states have proven that Jen Psaki has personal knowledge about censorship issues between the Biden administration and big tech. The court has considered that Psaki was a high-ranking official at the time, especially when she served at the White House. However, this rank does not mitigate the relevance and the need of her deposition as it relates to this case. And any burden on Psaki is outweighed by the need to determine whether free speech has been suppressed. The court has determined that there are substantive reasons for taking the deposition. Extraordinary circumstances are present. As stated above, Psaki has made a number of statements that are relevant to the government's involvement in the censorship issues at hand. And so, accordingly, it is ordered that Jen Psaki cooperate in the state's request to depose her for the discovery injunction. Jen Psaki going to be making her way over to the deposition room. You can see the rest of these people are all ordered deposed. Let's just go through very quickly and see who else is on the list. Elvis Chan, FBI agent. He was apparently communicating with Mark Zuckerberg, and they censored the story of the Hunter Biden laptop. Meta talked about this on the Joe Rogan show. And so you can see the judge ordered Elvis Chan must cooperate, ordered to cooperate with discovery. Jen Easterly from CISA, Cyber Intelligence Security Administration. She's also ordered to cooperate with the request. CISA, misinfo, malinfo, team member Lauren. Guess what? Her too. She is ordered to cooperate with the Depos. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, same story with him. He was all over the place, censoring like crazy. Court says he's got personal knowledge. He's also a high-ranking official, but guess what? There are exceptional circumstances here, and he was a big part of this. So the request for a depo is granted. It is ordered that he cooperate with the depo. Others, same approvals, and the list goes on until we get to the conclusion where the judge said, for the following reasons, everybody is getting deposed in a beautiful order signed on the 21st day of October by Terry A. Dowdy, U.S. District Court Judge out of the great state of Louisiana. All of those Biden officials sitting for depositions, and my friends, that is a fun victory. Can I just tell you that? Anthony Fauci, Psaki, Vivek Murthy, we've got the whole smorgasbord of little corrupt censors who are all going to have to be sitting down for depos by the incredible Mr. Schmidt out of Missouri. And so, of course, we will continue to cover this. I do hope that you join us. And when Jen Psaki and Fauci, when they sit down for those depositions, well, we'll have to cover those here, and I hope you join us. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for liking this video wherever it is you are watching it. But all right, my friends, we've got one final segment left before we wrap it up for the day. And we're going international here a little bit. And we've got the letter queued up, so let's just get right into it, shall we? Democrats reversing course on the war in Ukraine, now seemingly anti-war, which is new because they have been very pro-war in this most recent saga. We're going to talk about this woman. Her name is Representative Jayapal, and she is joined by 30 other House Democrats, all signing a letter going to the Biden administration, telling the Biden administration it's time to negotiate, okay? This endless promise of endless war. It's Ukraine victory at all costs. We can't do that anymore. It's not working. 30 Democrats now saying, it's probably time for us to think through this a little bit differently. This letter going over to President Biden, drafted October 24th from the Congress of the United States. And it's signed by 30 House Democrats, starting with Pramila Jayapal. We also have Cori Bush, who signed off on it. You know who she is. Earl Blue Manure is in the House, along with several others. Let's give shout outs to Ilhan Omar, who signed this, along with our friend and the big juicy booty Latina, AOC, who is hot like a tamale, is in the House, signed off with Jamal Bowman, Mary Newman, and others. Look at all these Democrats. I don't even recognize most of them, but they're all in here. We know Jamie Raskin, Slippery Jamie, he's on the list, but they're all very excited about joining a new letter, which is basically what they do in Congress. 30 House Democrats write to Joe Biden. They say, "Dear Mr. President, we write with appreciation for your commitment to Ukraine's legitimate struggle against Russia's war of aggression." You can sort of feel like a big but coming in here. You know, this is like, you've done a great job, but they say, "Your support for the self-defense of an independent, sovereign, and democratic state has been supported by Congress, including through various appropriations of military aid and billions of dollars being ransacked out of the American taxpayers' wallets. Your administration's policy was critical to enable the Ukrainian people, through their courageous fighting and heroic sacrifices, to deal a historic military defeat to Russia, forcing Russia to scale back. And crucially, Mr. President, you achieved this while maintaining that it's imperative to avoid direct military conflict leading to World War III, something we have to prevent." The Democrats say, "The risk of nuclear weapons being used has been estimated to be higher now than at any time since the height of the Cold War." And we've talked about that here and on our morning walk and talks. Leon Panetta, who, take his assessment for what it's worth, he revised his assessment. He is ex-CIA director, from 0 to 5% of nuclear weapons being used to, I think, 20 to 25%, from 0 to 5 to 20 to 25. And he's not alone in that assessment. Other people are making similar prognostications because it's just game theory. If it continues to escalate, there's only so much you can do. The Democrats write, "Given the catastrophic possibilities that your administration has caused of creating nuclear escalation and miscalculation, which only increase the longer this war continues, we agree with your goal of reducing military conflict and avoiding direct confrontation." They say, "Given the destruction created by this war for Ukraine and the world, as well as the risk of catastrophic escalation, we also believe it is now in the interest of the Ukraine, the United States, and the world to avoid a prolonged conflict. For this reason, Mr. President, we urge you to pair the military and the economic support the United States has provided to Ukraine with a proactive diplomatic push, redoubling efforts to seek a realistic framework for a ceasefire. This is consistent with your recognition that there has to be a negotiated settlement here, and your concern that Putin doesn't have any way out right now. I'm trying to figure out what we do." The House Dems say, "We are under no illusions regarding the difficulties involved in engaging Russia, given its outrageous and illegal invasion of Ukraine, and its decision to make additional illegal annexations of Ukraine territory." They say, "However, if there is a way to end the war while preserving a free and independent Ukraine, it is America's responsibility to pursue a diplomatic avenue to support them. Such a framework would presumably include incentives to end hostilities, including some form of sanctions relief." That's giving in to the Russians. Is she a Russian puppet? and bring together international community to establish security guarantees for a free and independent Ukraine that are acceptable for all parties, including Ukrainians. The alternative to diplomacy is protracted war, with both its attendant certainties and catastrophic and unknowable risks. Russia's invasion has caused incalculable harm to the people of Ukraine, leading to deaths of thousands and the displacement of 13 million people. And it's led to a pivotal moment of conflict. The conflict threatens an additional tens of millions of more people worldwide. Skyrocketing prices in wheat, fertilizer, and fuel spark acute crises in global hunger and poverty, which we talked about, I don't know, when this whole thing started. Oh, where were they when this whole thing started? Yeah. A war that is allowed to grind on for years, potentially escalating in intensity and geographic scope, threatens to displace, kill, and immiserate far more Ukrainians while causing global war, poverty, and death around the world, obviously. The conflict has continued and contributed to elevated gas and food prices, fueling inflation, high oil prices for Americans. Economists believe that if the situation in Ukraine is stabilized, some of the speculative concerns driving higher fuel will likely lead to a drop in world oil prices. I am shocked that this is coming out of America. I was expecting to see more of this coming out of Europe. I was thinking that winter's not even really here yet. Like, it's coming upon us rapidly, but there's going to be a lot more of this type of call from, I expect, many European nations. We agree that the administration's perspective that it is not America's place to pressure Ukraine government, and with the principle that you've enunciated that there should be nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. So they're saying, we know that we haven't brought the Ukrainian people into this conversation. We can't talk about Ukraine without Ukraine, and we really shouldn't be making decisions for Ukraine without Ukraine. But as legislators responsible for the expenditure of tens of billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars in military assistance, we believe that such involvement in this war also creates a responsibility for the U.S. to seriously explore all other potential avenues, including direct engagement with Russia, to reduce harm and support Ukraine in achieving a peaceful settlement. In May, President Zelensky, despite deadlocked negotiations, reiterated that the war will only definitively end through diplomacy. His tune has changed on that now, and had previously explained that any mentally healthy person always chooses the diplomatic path. Again, that has changed as well. In conclusion, the Democrats asked Biden, they say, "We urge you to make vigorous diplomatic efforts in support of a negotiated settlement and ceasefire. Engage in direct talks with Russia. Explore prospects for a new European security arrangement acceptable to all parties that will allow for a sovereign and independent Ukraine, and in coordination with our Ukrainian partners, seek a rapid end to conflict and reiterate this goal as America's chief priority. Sincerely, Pramila Jayapal, Democrat member of Congress, along with Juicy Booty AOC and all of the others." And so you can see kind of a quick about face. I mean, up until just a week or so ago, I thought the Democrats were very inclined to funnel tens of billions of dollars over there because they were playing patty cake with the Republicans, who were doing the same thing. But now we're starting to see a little bit of a fracture here. And we'll see if this continues to develop as people ask themselves, whose responsibilities lie where as this global conflict continues. Of course, we'll continue to cover that and more, and we hope you join us as we do. That's the Democrats throwing it into reverse, at least some of them, on Ukraine. And we will continue to cover. But that, my friends, is it for us for the day. We got through 4 segments here, and we covered a lot of ground. We did some reading, some Trump news, some Biden news. We got some updates from Court of Appeals, from federal district courts, and more. And now it is time to hear from you and to see what you have to say. I know that there were some super chats that came in on YouTube. We're going to hit a couple super chats, and then we're going to jump on over to locals for our after party, where we hit the locals comments over there. But I did see a couple super chats come in on YouTube, and so I want to make sure we get those before we wrap those up. Thank you, everybody, for sending those in. We had Oil Smoke Jones who started us off today. Oil Smoke Jones says, we've become a totalitarian country with the fascist enforcement tactics always associated with communism, if you ask me, which you ain't. Well, Oil Smoke, I mean, you know, I am sort of asking you, and I appreciate you sharing that. You know, that's sort of one of the benefits of a live stream is we get to do it together, which is a lot of fun. And I like to get your opinions on this. And so I agree that we are sort of trending towards totalitarian-ish control. I mean, that's what they want. Like if you compare and contrast this with other countries, in many ways, we have a lot of similarities between the two. We used to, chant about free speech, for example. We don't have so much of that anymore. We just read through a big list, a big case where even a federal judge says, yeah, they were impinging on your free speech in a whole slew of areas. The government actors were doing it, and there may be repercussions for it. Kareem says, thanks for another great show, Rob. Have a great time in Texas. See you back next week. Yeah, another reminder. So there's not going to be a live show. Thank you, Kareem, for that. I am going to be going to Texas. I'll be there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So there will not be any live streams here because I'm not taking all of this gear. But I will have my walk and talk stuff, and we'll have some fun. I'll be able to post some videos and things in between. It's a 3-day conference, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But thank you. I'm going to miss you guys. I always do. Magdalene says, love your morning walks. Oh, awesome, Magdalene. Glad that you'd like them. All right, how on earth can we fix this darn mess that so many countries are in? Too many sheeple, not enough people. I like that one. I think you're onto something there, Magdalene. We have to continue to conversate with people, to converse. We have to shake people out of the stupor that a lot of people have allowed themselves to be buried in. And I think it's important to continue the conversations, to continue to stand up for our values, the things we believe in, not just, go quietly into that good night and get, sort of join the herd. I think it's very important that we continue to, I think community is important. I think preparedness is important. Forward thinking, education, educating ourselves, knowing what's going on is very important. And so I'm not so sure that we can save all of the countries, but that's not our responsibility. We have to take care of ourselves, our society, our family, the people who stand up for our values, and for our fellow Americans who are in alignment with those principles. Melanie Schwartz says, they know they are going to lose both Congress and the Senate, which makes me nervous. I'm sure they have many shenanigans planned, from Melanie, especially in the areas that they need to win. Power outages, false flags. Melanie, you're onto something there. These situations always make me nervous. We were talking about this, I think, last week on our morning walk and talk. And I said something like, it feels a little bit too quiet, doesn't it? It's like it's October. I'm waiting for something. It feels a little bit. When Merrick Garland came out, he came out today and he said that they were announcing that there was a something. What was the deal? Oh, Chinese are in the United States and they're interfering with Chinese and stuff like that. Drop everything. Giant press release, press conference. Some Chinese, police spies getting indicted. Okay. I thought it was going to be something more serious than that, like a big surprise, but it wasn't. I'm still waiting for something. We still have a little time left on the clock. Hopefully it's nothing problematic. But we had Melanie Schwartz. Thank you, Melanie. Joanne Hansel sent in a nice sticker, dancing away. Thank you, Joanne. I appreciate the super sticker. Came in and hit the chat. Hell Pike says, how dare you talk about the science that way, Rob? How dare you? I know. The Fauci, the Dr. Anthony Fauci was somebody that, obviously he's in control of science. He runs science now, and we just have to accept whatever he says. Doesn't matter if it's not how science necessarily works. It's just whatever Fauci says. This one came in from Facts Matter, and Facts Matter is dead right on this. Our last one in here from YouTube. Facts Matter says, Rob may get mad at me, but please save your super chat money and join locals instead. Way better investment. And he's dead right about that, by the way. It doesn't even make me mad. I'll tell you that openly. I would much rather I would rather never get a super chat again and just have you join over on locals. And I'm serious about that. Because locals, it's deeper. It's sort of a deeper connection. Now, I mean, it's not to say that, we don't have a deep connection on YouTube, but you sort of, you get to join a community. I mean, that's really, there's no other word for it. It's community over there, and we sort of get to know each other, get to know names, and there actually is a lot more content over there. Like, we started the show 2 minutes early today. We're going to end the show, 30 minutes later. We're going to stop it here and continue over on locals. And it's just, it is a better investment. So thank you, Facts Matter, for pointing that out. I think it's an astute observation. And in fact, we're going over there right now because we're just about done with those super chats. But I want to thank everybody here who is in the chat. Let's see who else is in the YouTube chat. And of course, we've got, let me see over on Rumble. We got some Rumble. I got so many screens open here. And we got some Rumble shout outs. Oh, hey, shout outs to Rumble. We've got Eric Scorpio's in the house. Silence and PO. Dog Diggers over there. Yeah, we've been screaming, Silenced and PO said, we've been screaming diplomacy before day one. These people know we see it. We were all screaming diplomacy from day one. When they were saying, that they were moving 3,500 troops around and all this stuff, I was like, is there really going to be a war? Because this doesn't seem like there's going to be a war if that's what they're doing. So maybe there's a diplomatic solution already in place and there wasn't, and then it turned into a big war. It's like, wow, they really are incompetent. They have no idea what they're doing at all. So that's what's going on over on Rumble. Shout out to my friends, Lenny Malley. We have Marvin's over there on the YouTube chat. We've got Cynthia Mulholland. We've got shout out to Mr. J-Bug, Allison Cole, James Frond, Tweety Pie. We've got Leans over there, Spider Fan 300, Putzman. Hippy Dippy Cali Girl is back. Hippy Dippy Cali Girl accidentally got banned and we had to unban her. Playing Hooky says we're going to miss the evening fix. I know. Well, I'll be able to still post some content and stuff. I'm going to bring my laptop so I can splice some clips in and stuff. But the live stream here, it's got my ad. It's a huge setup, and so I'm going to fly over to Austin. It's going to be a great 3-day. It's actually not in Austin. It's about an hour outside Austin, but it's going to be a great little seminar for 3 days. Going to learn a lot of stuff. So. Yeah, I'm going to be gone Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but I will. So the live show will not be going, but I'll probably just make the morning walk and talks, some of the other videos that we do, just public, and we'll keep the stories going because I'm certain that I will have some downtime in between the conference. But that, my friends, is it for us here. We're going over to locals right now as soon as we wrap this up, but let's do it before we go. We have. Of course, if you want to join us, it's over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. You can also join on YouTube. You get access to those morning walk and talks that you sort of heard me talking about today, which are just carrying on the conversation in the mornings, sort of walking around the neighborhood and having conversations. And so certainly join us, and thank you for supporting the show. I also am a lawyer, and so if you know anybody who has come to the state of Arizona and gotten in a little bit of trouble, whether it's a domestic situation, a drug situation, a felony, anything violent, anything not violent, traffic related even, we can help. We have an awesome team of people, amazing lawyers at the R&R Law Group located in Scottsdale, Arizona. We have a mission to help good people facing criminal charges. We want to help them find safety, clarity, and hope, not only in their cases, but beyond that, in their lives. And we're dedicated at making that get done when they are going through a difficult time in our justice system. We offer free case evaluations available anytime you are, 480-787-0394 online. You can schedule an appointment right online at rrlawaz.com. And we are really very grateful for your referrals. They really do keep us busy, and they sort of allow us to spend more time here together. And I'm just grateful for all of your support. Before we wrap up, thank you to the mods who, as usual, mod down the fort for us. Big shout outs to Vientikes, who's on, I think he's on game night tonight. It's Monday. Shout outs to K Bean. We've got Just Cause. Lean is in the house, along with Play and Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu. Geo swings by along with Henry from time to time. This is our last month of our Spotlight supporters. And so, Spotlight supporter friends, if you are out there, do please send me an email at robert@rrlawaz.com. This is our last month doing this. But I want to say thank you to Chris Romero, David B3, Dr. EMB in the house, over at John over at qsimple.com. John over at qsimple.com as well. So check out that website. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. I want to thank you for being a part of the program as usual. Thank you for sharing this video with your friends. Thank you for sharing a short with a friend. Just, hey, maybe you can't sort of encourage somebody to come over here and join us for a 2-hour live stream, but a short, maybe share a short with them because it's election season. And I appreciate you sort of helping us get the message of the show out there and helping the audience grow and connect with some of the work that we're doing here. But we are done for the day. We are going to be back here tomorrow to do it all again. And I hope to see you right here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous evening, my friends. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye. Locals, I'm coming over to you right now. We're coming in hot. I know you can still hear me out there.